happiness, and I've spent like several hours on this, so I really hope that you guys get a lot out of it. And at the end, I'm going to ask you guys to take a survey and do some exercises as well. But I'll go into that towards the end of the presentation here. Okay. So the reason I came across this research, I came across it last year. I was pregnant with my second child. With my first child, I had SPD, which made it very difficult for me to walk. I was having to use a walker to get around and a wheelchair. So knowing that going into my second pregnancy, I was pretty miserable. I was, you know, I guess you would say that I was depressed. I would say that I was depressed. I know a lot of women love pregnancy. I don't understand that. It's like I can't tie my shoes. I have trouble getting in and out of the bathtub. I sometimes would have to crawl on my hands and knees just to get to the bathroom because my back hurts so bad. I don't know where these crazy women are who think that's that pregnancy is enjoyable. But so I decided instead of letting that hold me through the rest of my pregnancy, that I was going to do something about it. I decided to try to find ways to become happier so that I, you know, could try to at least not be miserable. I didn't really think I would achieve any happiness, but, you know, I was at least trying not to be miserable constantly and poor company to my husband. So, I was finding a lot of these clickbait articles, you know, 5 easy ways to improve your mood and things like that, which were very irritating. But eventually I came upon some very comprehensive information from Dr. Shawn Achor and Psychology Today and, you know, other scholarly articles written on the topic of happiness. So I'm going to go over those with you. So a lot of people, they go into pleasure seeking to find happiness. Soul pleasure seeking actually has an inverse relationship with long-term happiness. Pleasure seeking isn't bad, but you shouldn't dive into pleasure seeking to cover up, you know, negative feelings like loneliness and sadness. So a lot of people think that their genetics and their environment resolutely determine their health and mental well-being. So this is only partly true. Those things provide a baseline, but each individual is capable of cultivating better health and happiness for themselves. Again, that's not to say that genes and environment don't play a factor. It's just that individuals are capable of achieving more for themselves than that baseline determines. So what are the percentages here? Only 10% of long-term happiness is determined by environment. 50% is genetics. So that's a lot. That's 60% that we really don't have too much control over. But the other 40% we do. 40%, that's the difference between a D- and an A+. That's quite substantial. So probably a lot of you already know that happiness is rooted in gratitude. Tennant and Affleck, two researchers in 2002, found that when people were faced with adversity or traumas, they were able to experience, and they were able to experience gratitude. They were able to push through the adversity or trauma quicker and with better results, and they were more resilient. Yeah, I kind of had a tough childhood, and for a long time, I saw myself as a victim. And yeah, I won't go into a lot of details, but it was a pretty hard childhood. And the school sent me to a counselor, and I was telling her about, you know, I was listing all of these horrible things going on in my life. And she said to me, you know, you're really good at playing a victim. And I was so angry about that. You know, like, what was she talking about? I am a victim. And I thought about it for a good 3 days, and I realized that she was right. Just because I was being victimized didn't mean that I had to play a victim role. All that was doing was keeping me down. It was preventing me from seeing opportunities and taking them. And it was like the sky opened up above me, and I started finding footholds, to climb out of that situation. And so that was my baseline. And my genetics, I come from two parents who both have addictions and mental health issues like bipolar and depression. But I've come out of that because my baseline, I didn't have to stay there. And neither do you. If you guys are having any troubles or traumas that you're going through, I'd love to talk to you, and we can kind of commiserate and come up with, better ways to look at our situations. I now look at that as a really defining time in my life. Like I felt that I was much better equipped to be on my own and handle myself than my peers were, because I had to grow up at such a young age. So I looked at that as a benefit, and it made me really tenacious to go for things that I wanted to go for. So yeah, so again, going back to the study about gratitude, people who were able to see that, they can push through those adversities quicker, and they're much more resilient. So we want to be optimistic, but optimistic is not about avoiding the negative. Avoiding the negative, that leads to bad decision making. What we need to try to obtain is rational optimism. Shawn Achor describes his version of joy. It's not, I don't know how much it ties into what I've been saying, but his definition of joy is, or happiness is, the joy one feels when striving for one's potential. So I know that you guys have probably all had very good feelings when you're doing something that makes you feel like you're becoming better. So here are a lot of research that's been done on happiness, because I mean, you guys are fives, a lot of you, according to Erin's Enneagram test. So you like the numbers, you like the science. Here you go. So there was a study done by Masters, Barden, and Ford in 1979 with children in blocks. They were told to put the blocks together as quickly as they could. Both the test group and the control group were told to do this. But the test group were told, prior to being given that instruction, to recall a memory that made them very happy. And then they were told, okay, now here's the directions, put these together as quickly as possible. And the test group performed 50% quicker and better results than the control group, who hadn't been told to think of anything positive. And there's been a lot of subsequent tests on how positivity affects your ability to accomplish things. Like, I didn't write this one down, so I don't remember the researchers' names or the date it was done, but they had these two different groups trying to solve mazes and on paper. And so the one group was, their maze had a scary owl on it, and you were a mouse who was trying to avoid the owl. The other group had a maze that had cheese, so the mouse was like looking for the cheese instead. And the ones that didn't have the owl, chasing them, they performed a lot quicker on those mazes. I don't know the percentage again, because like I said, that's just one I had pulled out of my memory. So let's see, another study on happiness was done at MetLife Insurance by Dr. Martin Seligman in the mid-'80s. He conducted it on their sales staff, and he found that the top 10% of the optimists in the sales group were outselling the most pessimistic by 88%. That's an enormous amount of difference there. So Dr. Seligman convinced them to hire based on optimism scores instead of on sales knowledge and experience and expertise. I don't believe that they currently still do that, but the new people that they hired according to their optimism levels, they were outperforming the other sales staff by 26% their first year and by 57% their second year. So yeah, happiness is great. Happiness is the precursor to success. That's what these studies tell us. It's not the result of success. A lot of people think that happiness is on the other side of their success. But when you achieve a goal, you do feel a surge of happiness that can last relative to the amount of time you spent working towards the goal. But eventually, your happiness returns back to its previous level if you're using successes for happiness versus getting success from being happy. If happiness were caused by success, we would see a lot less depression, suicide, drug use, and overdosing in our celebrity population, but that's just not the case. And studies have found that happiness levels flatline for people who chase successes for happiness. This is another one that I didn't write down, but there was a, they were studying kids at Harvard, and they were so excited to get into Harvard. Of course, they worked so hard to do that. But after 3 weeks, that excitement that they felt from getting into Harvard, their happiness levels were right back down to their initial happiness levels. It didn't really, we always think, if I get this, it'll make me happy. If I buy a new house, it'll make me happy. If I get a better car, it'll make me happy. So hopefully we can kind of dismantle those untruths throughout this lecture, I guess. So another study done was on lottery winners versus accident victims. This is Brickman et al. I don't have a year here, but so the accident victims were all either paraplegic or quadriplegic. So the lottery winners obviously felt very good about winning the lottery, but overall they were no more generally happy than the control group. The accident victims obviously, again, reported very low levels of happiness in their current state. So they were asked, the control group, the lottery winners, and the accident victims were all asked to judge their past levels of happiness, their current levels of happiness, and their future levels of happiness. How happy do you think you're going to be in the future? So the control group and the lottery winners, pretty much the same present level of happiness. The accident victims had the highest previous level of happiness because, of course, they're comparing it to where they're at now. And the surprising thing on this study was that all of the groups, the control group and the test group and the control group and both of the test groups, they estimated the same amount of future happiness. So this is all about how circumstances, yes, can definitely affect your current levels of happiness. But again, that going back to that 10% of your situation only having 10% of an effect on your long-term happiness. Although I don't know how much that 10% changes with severe disfigurement. So another study done was on social support. This one I really like. Let's see, where is that one? So there was a study done showing that people who are standing in front of a hill and being told to climb it will perceive that hill as 10 to 20% larger than if they're standing next to a friend that is going to climb it with them. So I thought that was, and this is a literal hill, but this can also be a metaphorical hill. Positivity spreads, so does negativity. I think we all know that. We have mirroring neurons in our brain, which makes our brain react to the external as though we're experiencing the observed behavior. So like if someone smiles at you and you smile, your brain is feeling that happiness to an extent, as though you were the one that was smiling initially, or even if you're not smiling and looking at somebody that's happy. But also our faces just naturally, when people yawn, you want to yawn. We have these great mirroring neurons. Let's see. So there's also a lot of studies that have been done on sorry. Let me take a breath. Slow down, Brandy. There's studies that have been shown that if you look at the world in a certain pattern, and if you do it for a long time, your brain will retain that pattern, even if it's not serving you any longer. This is called cognitive after image. A lot of people also call this the Tetris effect, because there was a study done where they asked participants to play Tetris for a large number of hours, and the participants were reporting that once they were done playing, that they would go home and they were just seeing the lines everywhere and wanting to arrange everything into the most optimal organization at their homes, at the grocery store. Even they would like try to fix, the facing of the items in the aisles. So they also did a study on tax auditors that talks about cognitive after imaging. So because tax auditors, highly depressed, if you can imagine, they found out that they were depressed. They were spending their whole day looking through forms, looking for mistakes and errors. And they would take that same pattern outside of their work, looking for mistakes and errors in their personal lives and relationships, and that results in high levels of depression. In the final portion, I'll go over some daily behaviors that we can use to use cognitive after imaging to our benefit. So, benefits of happiness. I don't have to try to convince you guys too hard to be happy, I'm sure, but here are some benefits of happiness. Healthy behaviors. Happy people are much more likely to engage in healthy behaviors. Heart health. Immune system boosts. Your immune system performs a lot better if you're happy. Longevity. There was a study done on nuns in 2001 that found that 90% of the happiest nuns lived past 85, while only 34% of the least happy nuns lived past 85. So 34 is still a large percentage to live past 85, but obviously the numbers are much higher if you're happier. Better decision making. You make better decisions when you're happy. You're better at creative problem solving when you're happy. You have improved productivity both at home and at work. Increased successes, again, both at home, at work, in relationships. Happy people not only notice more opportunities, but are much more likely to seize them. So, what can we do to try to capture happiness for ourselves? Now, I want you guys to really pay attention to this, because at the end, I'm going to send you guys a link. Actually, I'll send it in an email, because I forgot to copy it in my haste to get to the meeting, but I'll send you guys all an email that'll have a link to a questionnaire about happiness. I want you guys to all fill it out, and I would love for you to send me back the results. I will keep these anonymous, but I already have your social security numbers and your addresses, so what's letting me know what your happiness levels are? So I'll compile those all and see where most of us are at now. And I would also like to know if the following exercises, if you currently do any of these prior to this sort of experiment I would like to do, so that I can, if we have any outliers, we can see if there's any reason why they're outliers. And then at the end of these, I'm going to do it for 21 days. I'm going to ask you guys to do these, at least 2 of these for 21 days. And then, I'll go over all of this at the end. Okay, so one of the exercises you can do is a gratitude journal, where you write down 3 things. But the important part of this is that the 3 things have to be new within the last 24 hours. Because if you are just writing down, oh, I'm happy for my family and my house and my job, you're not scanning your environment. The very important part of this exercise is scanning your environment. So there have to be 3 new things within the last 24 hours. Like, I was happy this morning that my son gave me a hug, and, we had a little time outside. It's not the best one, but I don't have my gratitude journal pulled up here. So there are a couple of really great apps for this. One is called Grateful. It's a very simple app. And it also, a lot of these apps that I'm going to recommend, they are both free and a lot of them allow you to set up reminders. And again, in that email that I'm going to send you, I will list all of these apps. So Grateful is a nice simple app, and 365 Gratitude for the journaling is a little bit more comprehensive. And they have meditations and communities you can join if that's more your style. So the next thing is journaling a positive experience. For 2 minutes a day, you journal a positive experience. When you write down a positive experience, you get to relive that experience. Literally, your brain is experiencing that again. So you're doubling the happiness you're receiving from that. And again, it will help you start scanning. The important part of the scanning is that your brain, once you start doing this for an amount of time, let's see. Okay, I actually have some facts written down on this. Sorry, guys, I'm all over the place. So your brain is kind of running like a background app when you start doing this for a few days, because you're scanning things to find, oh, that's something I'm grateful for. So you're not only, coming up with things to write in your journal, you're actually noticing more of the good things that are happening to you. And it's starting to change. It helps change your view about things that happen. I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, this is from a while ago, but I was walking one day and I spilled coffee all over myself, and I viewed it as funny instead of being really mad about it. And then I was grateful that I didn't let it make me have a bad day. So yeah, that's what I mean by kind of changing your view about things. People who did this for 21 days consistently, the gratitude journaling, they were testing consistent pessimists, like people who consistently tested as pessimists. They started testing as low-level optimists after 21 days. Just this one thing, just the gratitude journal. That's huge because a lot of researchers and scientists have believed that pessimism was a genetic trait that couldn't be changed. And here, they found in this study that you actually can change it. And people who did it for 6 months moved from pessimist levels to low to moderate levels of optimism. So, yeah, like I was saying, so the journaling for 2 minutes a day about a positive experience is the next thing you can do. Focusing on your breath for 2 minutes a day. I have a parable about this. I don't know if it's really a parable. There's not much of a lesson, but when I was first learning about meditation, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, there was this story about a monk who was learning to meditate, and he went to his teacher and was saying, I hate focusing on my breath all day, every day. It's so boring. And they were by a river, and his teacher grabbed his head and put his head underwater and was holding him there. And he said, "Now, do you think your breath is boring?" And I don't know what the lesson is there. I just, for some reason, always remember that one. But anyway, focusing on your breath is for just 2 minutes a day. There is an app called 3-Minute Mindfulness, and this is a really cool app because there's a screen that tells you, it's like a very calming, breathe in, breathe out, and they have different patterns like breathe in and hold, exhale and hold, or, for this long and for that long. And you can customize it. So if you want a nice voice telling you, breathe in, breathe out. I don't like that, so I turned it off, but that's a great app. Again, will be in the email. The next one would be cardio exercises. Nope. That is the next one on my Word document, but not the next one on this slide. Meditation. This one is really, this one's not one that Dr. Shawn Achor recommends, but I have found so much good research on this. And the most astounding thing that I found was that scientists, they found that after 8 weeks of 15-minute a day meditation, that your brain literally changes. Like the actual structure of your brain is changing. The volume in the posterior cingulate, which is involved in wandering and self-relevance, that increases like in volume. The volume of your left hippocampus, which assists in learning and cognition, memory and emotional regulation, that that increases the volume of that. The tempo per, I don't know if I'm going to say this one right. They also call it a TPJ, so I'll stick with that one. That's associated with perspective taking and empathy and compassion. The volume of that part of your brain increases. And then an area called the pons on your brainstem, that's where your regulatory neurotransmitters are produced. That also increases in volume. One thing does shrink in your brain, and that's the amygdala, which you guys probably, a lot of you know, is well known for its processing of fear and anxiety. Shrinkage there. And another smaller study, or less impressive study I read, which is still pretty cool, was saying that meditating for 15 minutes a day has the same effect on your brain as taking a day's vacation. So I love meditating. I wish I did it more. I'm going to do it more over these next 21 days. Cardio, 15 minutes. Here we go. Even better if it's outside, because numerous studies have been conducted that prove nature's positive effects on mental health. And of course, cardio increases your endorphins, your dopamine, adrenaline, and endocannabinoids, which are all chemicals associated with feeling happy, confident, feeling capable, feeling less anxious and stressed. So, and sometimes even less physical pain. Cardio, it's good. Kindness to others. This one, Dr. Shawn Achor has a recommendation for it. It's not one that I have been able to do. It's taking 2 minutes every day and writing someone you know about something that you're grateful that they've done for you. And you do that for 21 days. So you're finding a new person every day to write these messages or emails or texts to. I also went and looked up other kindness, small acts of kindness that you can do. I found a teacher from high school that I wrote an email to, and I don't know, it didn't make me feel great. But some of these other things do. Smiling and saying hello to strangers. Another one is just to write a note to. It's kind of piggybacking on the previous one. This one maybe you guys might have a harder time with. Letting people merge into your lane. Do it purposefully. I do that all the time, and I love how excited people are because of how infrequently it happens. If anyone you know is struggling or having a hard time or going through something challenging, take a moment to reach out to them and ask them how they're doing. It really means a lot to people to know that they're being thought of. If you're in a drive-through, maybe pay for the person behind you, or leave a generous tip for delivery people. Leave positive reviews on your local businesses pages that, the ones that you frequent and think are really wonderful. There's probably others. If anybody has any to add, feel free to add it in the chat. So the conclusion is, I, again, would like everybody to take this test that I'm going to send you. And I want you guys to pick out 2 of these. If you want to do more, that would be totally awesome. But yeah, I'd like you guys to just pick out 2 and do them for 21 days. And then at the end, on August 3rd, I'm going to send another reminder email to redo this test. What I'd like you to do is not look at your test results after today or tomorrow, whenever you happen to be able to take the test for the first time. I want you guys to not look, thank you, UPS guy, to not look at your results after you take it, so that you can see at the end what your difference is between your happiness levels today and your happiness levels 21 days after doing these 2 things. I would really, really love it if all of you participated. Not for me, for you. It's really, when I was doing this, when I was pregnant, it really made a huge difference in my outlook and in my levels of happiness. And so don't just do it for me, do it for yourself. But please send me those results and try not to look at them, because I don't want them, it's going to be hard to see immediately the effects because you're in it. But I think that a lot of you will be pleasantly surprised at the different levels between, because that's what I did. I took a test. I didn't look at it. I was surprised to find out how anxious and stressed and unhappy I was prior to doing these exercises. It was a nice surprise to see, wow, that I can't believe it's such a difference. So I want you guys to all kind of have that surprise too. Again, I'll send a follow-up email. It'll have all those apps. And if anyone wants to recommend any apps that they currently use, feel free to do that also. Yeah, that's all I have. Oh my goodness, I went all the way to 10. Didn't realize I'd have so much to say. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome for sharing.
No, this seems pretty cool. I think I'm going to try it. And it's hard to get me to try things.
Oh, good. Well, I'm very glad. I hope everybody wants to try it. So yeah, I'll send a comprehensive email so that you guys don't have to remember all of these exercises, and it'll go over examples and what have you. So, well, I hope you guys all have a really great day, and yeah, you'll be hearing from me soon.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thanks, Brandy.
Thanks, Brandy. Have a great day and a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks,
All right.
guys. Thanks,
Thanks, Brandy.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brandy. Thanks, guys.